right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we have a small crew, and we're going to be talking about March of the Machine Aftermath, the little supplemental standard set that's coming that's actually just full of legends. And kind of the gimmick of the set is we have a bunch of planeswalkers who lose their spark and become legendary creatures. So join with me this week is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Excited to talk about some pretty sweet Magic cards actually in this set.
And Tober, Budget Commander, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm also really excited to talk about a mini set that was clearly aimed at Commander players, because that's me.
All right, before we get into our cards, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. You can send in as many cards as you want with buy list value $1 or more, and you'll pay just a 5% service fee. You can use your sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay only 2%. No matter which option you choose, you'll get a detailed report with the result and fast payment once your order is processed. You can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to Card Conduit for sponsoring our show. And if you also want to give us a little help, you could subscribe, follow, likes on whatever podcast platform you use. We're on all of them. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Music, etc. So give us a follow there. And let's get into Aftermath. So we have a small crew. So Krim and Phil were out. So this time we've chosen each 4 cards we're excited to play with, and I gotta tell you guys, I had trouble coming up with 4 cards.
It's a small set.
The set is
Harsh.
small. There's only 50 cards, and because all the cards are legendaries, most of them are kind of build around me's. You don't kind of have kind of those staple-ish cards that you can just throw in any deck. So I'm kind of curious to see what list we've compiled here today for March of the Machine Aftermath. So Seth, start us off with your first pick for March of the Machine Aftermath.
All right, so I have my first pick, the sweetest commander, I think, from this set, in Nixilis Captive Kingpin. So Ob is one of the planeswalkers that is now a legendary creature. 4 mana for a 4/3 Rakdos legendary demon. It has flying and trample, and has a really neat ability. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life. That wording is so clunky, but when someone loses life or takes a damage, you put a +1/+1 counter on Nixilis, and you exile the top card of your library, and until your next end step, you can play that card. So when it comes to legendary creatures that can be commanders, I really want cards that make you play unique things. And I think that Nixilis cares about something that we really, I don't believe, have ever seen before, which is cards that deal exactly 1 damage. And there's a lot of really cool shenanigans with Nixilis. There's straightforward combos, like all will be 1 just goes infinite. If you deal 1 damage to someone with a Nixilis, and all will be 1, it will start a chain where Nixilis gets a counter, triggers all will be 1 to deal damage, back and forth, infinite damage. But even more interesting, like Mana Barbs or Pestilence or Pyrohemia. There's a lot of these weird cards that are really good at repeatedly dealing 1 damage, and that turns Nixilis into almost this combo commander, where once you stack up some of these effects, imagine like Nixilis with a Pyrohemia, which is just pay a mana, deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. You have Pyrohemia, you activate it, you ping everything for 1, that triggers and Ob grows, and then you do it again, and eventually you wrath the board, and you draw a ton of cards, and you have this huge Nixilis. So I think Nixilis is just a really cool build around commander. Also probably fine in like a sacrifice deck. Like I would jam this in Corvault or something like that, but I'm most hyped to just build around this as a commander with a bunch of stuff that can deal 1 damage.
Yeah, I think this card is.
Why does he
very
need the
unique.
pseudo card draw?
I wouldn't have run it unless it had
added extra cards for fun.
I don't think you would run this card if there wasn't like draw cards, that part, right? Like it just gets bigger.
Literally just gave you the combos, right? You can go infinite. You can actually just Pestilence or Pyrohemia the board and keep him alive because he keeps growing.
Yeah.
Card is now you get to draw cards while you're at it.
But why wouldn't you want to draw cards? I mean, I think that's like very 2023 Commander design. Like Wizards knows that players love drawing cards, so I'm not surprised that they tacked it on. I think it could still see like fringe play without that ability, but I would be much less excited to make it my commander and really go all in building around it if it wasn't also drawing me cards. How powerful do you think this card is? Like, is this a like legit strong commander, or is it more of a like fun janky build around? Whenever I see like things in exile and drawing cards, it makes me think Prosper, which is another 4-mana Rakdos commander that is proven to be really, really strong. How does Ob Nixilis compare to something like Prosper, power level wise?
I think Prosper is still going to be the strongest Rakdos Exile Matters commander, just because being able to make a treasure every single time you exile means there's a lot of like really efficient exile cards, like Impulse Draw or red cards. And you're really kind of more capped on mana than you are cards to cast, I believe, in my opinion. So I think Prosper is going to be a little bit stronger in that regard. But this is such a crazy good card draw engine, and also it's until the next end step. So it doesn't even have to be like until your end step. Like if you have to cast instants or something, if you're picking somebody on somebody else's turn.
Yeah, that's especially relevant with like the mana barb shenanigans and cards like that, because those trigger like when your opponent taps a land, which is mostly going to be in their turn. So yeah, the card sticking around until your next end step is a really huge deal for how Ob Nixilis actually works.
I think it's going to be a really fun build around. I think it's going to be really strong when it sits around on the table, because it's going to be drawing you a billion cards, and you can very quickly start like two-shotting people in the air because it has Flample as well. My only concern would be how good is the Ob Nixilis deck when Ob Nixilis is not on the battlefield, because it's a very unique effect, which is great because it's a really fun build around, but there's not a lot of like backup cards that do similar things. I could be wrong, but maybe you just build like a group pain deck, like Mogus, God of Slaughter or whatever, and you swap in Ob Nixilis, you tweak it around his ability, and then when he's not on the battlefield, okay, so whatever, I'm not drawing a billion cards, but I'm going to still be pinging you to death. And also when Ob Nixilis is on the battlefield, I'm probably going to be drawing like 5 or so cards and refill my hand in a pseudo way. So I talked myself into it. I like this card. This is pretty strong, and exciting. It's not like busted, I don't think, but it's really good.
I think he can get pretty big pretty quick.
Heck yeah.
The fair Magic player in me likes him. He can become a respectable body quite quickly. And who needs excuses to run Pestilence and Pyrohemia? We steal those cards of Empower Craft.
Yeah.
Remember we used those cards for rats at one point?
Yeah. Also, like, kind of hilarious. Extort's good. If you want to go janky, and I think this would be really fun, it's also like good with literal pingers, like Prodigal Pyromancer style cards. So it seems kind of funny to just load up your deck with. There's a lot of those creatures throughout Magic's history, and you can because Ob Nixilis cares about dealing 1 damage multiple times. Like that's what it wants the most. So every time that you activate the pinger, you're going to draw a card. So if you have 5 pingers, that's 5 cards, and then you untap them or whatever, go to the next turn, or cast something that untaps your pingers, which some of them have, like when what's the one in standard? Thermo Alchemist. Whenever you cast the instant or sorcery and untapped, you can kind of almost like storm combo with the cards you draw off of Ob Nixilis. So there's a few different ways that you can actually build around this card, which that also makes me excited. Just like you get to play these weird cards you wouldn't play in other decks, and you got multiple directions to go as you build.
So on that,
Spikefield Hazard is that a player or a creature?
Yeah, you can hit players with Spikefield Hazard.
Yeah.
Yep.
I actually just thought about another commander that actually has a similar playstyle, or at least shares a lot of the unique cards. Rakdos, Lord of Riots. It used to be a very popular Rakdos commander. I don't know how popular it is anymore, but basically it says creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponent's lost this turn. So it doesn't necessarily want you to run pingers, like any sort of damage will do, but I know a lot of Rakdos decks often will run like a 1 mana goblin thingy, Torchslinger or something. Like you tap it to just deal 1 damage to each thing, or Lobber Crew, tap it to deal 1 damage. So I think there's a lot of cards that you could find in the Rakdos deck that might work well here, and you could even have like maybe Rakdos as like a hidden commander type thing. It's going to work really well in the same deck. So there is like some overlap that can be really fun with this deck style.
All right, next up, I have Open the Way, which is X green green, a sorcery. X can't be greater than the number of players in the game. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards. Put those lands onto the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Is this the best 4-mana ramp spell?
Yes. I think in Commander in specific, it is. So I think it also depends a little bit on your deck. So the upside is, well, I mean, there's two upsides. Upside number one is you can cast it for 6 mana and get 4 lands, which is ridiculous. The flexibility is huge. The other upside is it can hit non-basic lands, which is a nice bonus. Downside though is it's pretty random, right? Like if you're playing a 5-color deck, it's not like you can snag the missing color of mana that you need to cast your bomb or whatever. So you never know. So I think in like 2 or 3 color decks in specific, I think this card's amazing, or even mono green decks, I think the card's amazing. What do you think about like 5-colored? Is the fact that you don't get to choose the lands, is that enough of a downside to make you not want to play it in 5-color decks where you might need a specific color of mana?
I think it's actually good in 5-color decks because I think the ideal 5-color mana base is often a mix of fetches and triomes. If you really want like high consistency, and then you pepper it in with like City of Brass and Command Tower and stuff like that. And the high emphasis on like really good consistent mana fixing in a 5-color mana base means that open the way. Like if you're just hitting like 2 fetches and like a triome and a City of Brass, like those are the lands you wanted anyway. So I think that's like, it's fine. It really depends on the mana base. Like if you're super janky for some reason, then no. But like if you're like fetches and triomes and stuff, which is pretty typical, it's good.
It's also super nice that you don't have to overload your deck with basic lands. Like this hits non-basic. No. So this is something where you can build your 5-color deck with, 3 basic lands or whatever. And this is still going to work every single time when in, some other ramp spells that only get basics, you run out of lands to find. So what do you think about this one, Richard? What is the most appealing part for you? Is it the fact that you don't have to play basics?
Yeah, it's not basic. And it's, like Tomer said, even in 5-color decks, you're getting like triomes and fetches and shocks or whatever off. Like I've never, since they invented triomes, I've never had problems getting the right colors. The only awkward thing would be is if you get fetches and you needed a certain triome because the fetch comes into play tapped. Mm-hmm. You have to like wait for it to untap, then you get a triome, which is like super awkward. But that is totally worth the upside of like flipping into your non-basics, such as like your Cradle or your Orborg or your whatever, right? Like, so any ramp that allows me to not play basics gets a thumbs up. And this is like, so you have the green ramp that lets you get forests, which lets you get triomes and things like that, right? But this actually lets you get the real utility lands, like ancient tombs, and that's not utility lands, like the fast mana lands, and then the actual like the Maze of Its and whatever, right? The Yamamayas. Yeah, so I actually think this is the best 4-mana ramp spell. And then in a pinch, it's a 3-mana ramp spell if you really want. And it's also, it keeps scaling up as well. So I would slot this as a 4-mana ramp spell, and it is flexible. And yeah, I think by 2024, I will not run a basic in any deck. We're well on our way. The only reason to run basics is for your ramp. And now that we don't need it, we have enough ramp that just gets non-basics. I actually don't need to run a single basic. I gotta throw in my bomb basics.
You gotta keep one for Beseiju, Richard, or a Path to Exile. No. You gotta have one. Yeah, it's too. Oh boy, I'm gonna strip mine you so hard if you actually go 0 basics.
Yeah, I thought Seth was the greatest.
I will come after your mana.
But then think of all those other times where I draw a forest instead of like
your single forest. You can say that about any card in your deck. Well, I'm not on team replace all the basics. I don't run a lot of basics in my 5-color deck either. Like I'll run like 2 as like path protection or whatever, but I don't know. Outside of that, anyway, without derailing it, I wanted to say the hidden best part of this ramp card though is that you don't have to shuffle. You reveal the top cards of your library, and then you put the bottom at the bottom, the other revealed cards at the bottom of your library in a random order. So you're just shuffling like the cards you reveal. That's it.
I think if Wizards could hop in a time machine back to 1993, I think this is how ramp would be.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd have rampant growths. I think this is how they would word ramp spells because they realize that shuffling kind of sucks, and it doubly sucks with Commander being super popular and 100 card decks and all that stuff. So I think this is something we're going to see more and more of out of ramp spells, just to minimize the shuffling.
Yeah. I mean, they can even reprint like rampant growth being like, when you cast a spell, choose a land type, then reveal cards on the top of your library until you reveal the chosen land type.
No, that's bad. No, I guess that's just as fast as fetching, because you just turn your library. No, wait, you can't turn your library over.
No, but
I
like,
want to sit here and flip cards one by one off the top until I find a force. If I'm playing like one force to my 99, that's like horrendous, right?
Run more basics.
There's actually, and we'll get to this card in a minute, there's another card in this set that might be suggesting how Wizards could go forward with ramp without shuffling, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to that one in a few minutes.
Okay.
All right, Tomer, what do you have for us?
All right. I know some people at the table are kind of tired about Boros equipment because we've had this discussion in the past. But as a Boros equipment lover, I take great pleasure in announcing that we have another very sweet Boros equipment commander with Nahiri, Forged in Fury.
Draw cards.
It's so good. It does. Look, it's okay. So it starts off kind of spooky. The mana value is 4, a red and a white. So it's 6 mana for a commander, but that's very misleading. It's a 5/4 core artificer, and it has affinity for equipment, which means this spell costs 1 less to cast for each equipment you control. So if you cast the Nahiri for the first time, you can spend, if you have 4 equipment on the battlefield, you can just spend red-white to cast her for 2 mana. And then if she died again and you had 6 equipment on the battlefield, you could still cast her for 2 mana. So she scales really well if you have more and more equipment on the battlefield. And then she has a very powerful triggered ability. Whenever an equipment creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. You may cast equipment spells this way without paying their mana costs. So she is card advantage because you're just exile drawing whenever you're attacking with equipped creatures. And it's not capped on like 1 or more. It's as many equipped creatures as you have, you're going to be exiling on top. You're going to be impulse drawing that much. And if they're an equipment card, you get to cast them for free. So I think this card is really sweet because it's like Boros equipment that really wants you to have like a super high concentration of equipments, but not only just like any regular equipments, but stuff like living weapons, which are equipments that enter the battlefield already equipped onto a token. For Mirrodin is another one that is really good that comes with a token. Reconfigure from Neon Dynasty Kamigawa. Those are equipment creatures that can be equipped onto creatures. So like you can flip like random lizard blades or something with Nahiri and cast it for free as well. And obviously you can cast the best equipments in the game, Cauldron Pieces, for 0 mana, which is busted. Like imagine how good Cauldron is. And now you get to cast the Cauldron Pieces for free? Oh my God. Oh my God. That's so
good. What you do is you play, you don't use Nahiri as your commander. You play Togo Arden.
Oh yeah.
So Togo gets you the rocks, so you have lots of rocks, so you can go wide, and then you can cast equipment for free, and then you use Arden to equip them for free. So now your Cauldron Pieces cost 0, and they equip for 0, and then you can go to town.
So, well, I mean, you can also put them in the 99. Togo Arden is definitely like great in the 99. There's like Bloodforged Battle Axe or something like that. It's like whenever you deal combat damage with the axe.
Oh yeah, Richard go off with that.
So like there's shenanies. And also Scroll Rack is really good. Like you put the equipments in your hand and you put it on top of your library and you hit all the equipments. Like it's super fun.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer on this one, but my goodness, do we have so many Boros equipment commanders? Like it's really hard for me to get hyped about like, okay, we got Wylith, we got Jorkadine, we got Blainer, we got Akiri, we got Aster, we got Ryu, we got Crowley. There's like 20 of these cards. So even though Nahiri's sweet, it's just hard for me to really get hyped about like, oh, this is like a very slightly different twist on something we've seen 10 times before in the past. So it's not a bad card. It's just, I guess I'm also not really an equipment player, so it's just
Rakdos Exile matters. Card. I'm sorry that there's too many Boros equipment commanders out for you.
It does something different. It's go wide equipment. Which is slightly different.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it's not Voltron-y.
I mean, my current
That's
commander
true.
is Akiri Fearless Voyager, which is basically if you attack for each opponent you attack with an equipped creature, you draw a card, so it is go wide already. But I like this even more because I get to cast my like Argentum armor, my 6 mana equipments for 0 mana, which is hilarious.
That's the most exciting part, I think, is the free cast mode. It really, I think maybe if this card's unique, it's the like living weapon equipment commander. I think that's like, you kind of mentioned this before, but I think that's the most exciting part. Sure, Argentum armor is great or whatever, but if you can play a bunch of Mirrodin cards, living weapon style cards, equipment that actually add bodies, that kind of turns Nahiri into this weird Winota almost, where you're attacking with your stuff and like slamming a ton of creatures into play. So I think it might be the best like equipment that are actually also creature Boros equipment commander, which is, that part's kind of neat. I can get behind that.
You know what's sick? You can like cast Embercleave off of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you have Sigarda's Age, like if you have Sigarda's Age as well,
Oh god.
like you can just go into combat, flip some stuff, and just like attach everything and kill someone like off out of nowhere.
Hammer of Nizan does the same thing
really,
too. They enter the battlefield equipped on creatures, so
Yeah,
it's
so
a
you
lot of
can
damage.
you can just like it's on attack. You can just exile and play them. Like you don't actually need to hit, so you can actually one shot someone out of nowhere with them. So that's actually kind of sweet.
I think also
Oh,
as
god,
a
do you just have
boomer-
to do you just have to kill this then? Like, can you just not let this attack you because you're going to be worried that you're going to get one shot? Is it actually that scary of a threat with a few equipped creatures
if
on the
they scroll
battlefield?
rack and then attack you, you should probably be concerned. But,
Well, if they scroll
it's
rack-
just like one card off the top. Like it has to be like it has to be enough pieces, right? You have to have like double strike. You have to have enough pumping.
Yeah, and you have to have stuff that says
it's
it
super
equips,
scary.
right? Like you can't just be like scroll rack attack you with a bunch of equipped creatures because they won't enter the battlefield.
Sigarda's
equipped
Age,
thing.
but if they have Sigarda's Age,
Yeah,
you should be scared.
so if you have like
anyway.
3 specific cards or something like that, then I think you should be killing this anyway, right? Like it's card advantage and mana advantage rolled up into a commander, so. I think it's actually much more punishing if you just like wipe the board of equipments because then Nahiri costs 1 billion mana and you're not getting any triggers, so just blow up the equipment. It's much easier.
All right, Seth, what do you have for us?
I mentioned a minute ago that there's another card that Wizards is maybe experimenting with ways to ramp without shuffling. So we got Rebuild the City, which is a 6 mana sorcery. It says choose target land, create 3 tokens that are copies of it, except they're 3/3 creatures in addition to their other types. They have vigilance and also menace. So this is a super duper unique card. On one hand, it's 6 mana, make 3/3 tokens, which is actually a decent amount of power and toughness. The upside is they're also lands. Is a ramp spell, it's a little awkward because it's making ramp creatures that do get swept away or hit by removal. There's no protection. And is a ramp spell, it'd almost be better if they weren't creatures, but then you're losing all that power and toughness. What makes this card really exciting to me, there's actually a few different things. So the most obvious use of this card is landfall synergies. Like this is trigger your landfall stuff 3 times, and they're tokens, so it's more than that if you have doubling season or other cards that synergize with tokens. So I can imagine like Jund Land Matters decks, like Lord Windgrace, Solo Windgrace, things like that, really making good use out of this. The other thing that's really interesting about this is we've talked many times about how the utility lands in Commander keep getting more and more powerful. This is make 3 copies of the best utility land on the battlefield. Imagine the late game casting this and getting triple Field of the Dead or getting triple Cabal Coffers or something. That's a really ridiculous turn. And then if you want to go really deep, there's also ways to turn your creatures into lands. Like if you have an Ashaya on the battlefield, Ashaya just turns all your non-token creatures into forests in addition to their other types. Then you can use this to target a creature and get copies of creatures that are also lands, which is like kind of hilarious and can do some really cool things. And Ashaya's in green and it worked in all those land matter, landfall synergies. So I just love this card. Plus, I think land tokens, that's another way to get around the shuffling problem. Like rampant growth, make a token that's a copy of a basic land type of your choice. That's a way you can rampant growth without having to shuffle your library at all. So I think there's some interesting possibilities with this land token idea that we just really haven't seen much before. And I think maybe moving forward, we'll see more of it.
I think like 9 times out of 10, you're just going to be targeting Field of the Dead with this. But the other
That's the best.
10, the one out of 10 times you target other things, I'm going to be really excited. Field of the Dead is really great. It's fine. I see it a lot, but I think I had the exact same response to Field of the Dead when you mentioned Field of the Dead when I said Nahiri, Forge and Fury is the new Boros.
I can respect that, yeah.
But yeah, this card is really sick, and I like the idea of like a Shaya and stuff to copy creature tokens and stuff, and I think it's a slam dunk in like Jund, Windgrace, and any sort of like utility lane Zut deck. It's like super exciting.
The lands are summoning sick, right? You can't.
They are.
For mana.
Unless you give them haste somehow, yeah. They are summoning sick.
You're in red, so.
I mean, I was really excited for 6 mana make like 3 Dowsing Daggers. The Lost Veil. But then they're summoning sick, and then they die to rats afterwards. So I think, yeah, the best case is Field of the Dead, because it doesn't matter summoning sick, and they get their triggers anyway.
Oh my god.
If you want something that's not Field of Dead that's still pretty sweet, Hideaway lands are kind of cute. Like you can hit the Hideaway lands and then like use them to cast a bunch of spells off. Like what's the
Go wrap the board and you lose all your cards. You just exiled yourself.
Well, yes, creatures are bad to rest. That is true. But like Mosswort Bridge, you need to have 10 power on the battlefield. This makes 9 power. Get 3 Mosswort Bridges, cast 3 spells for free. Like
that's so cute.
That seems really fun. That's like just such a cool synergy. So if you don't want to just be the boring Field of the Dead deck, there are some ways you can build around it and still do cool things that are not just like, oh, I made a ton of zombies and killed everyone.
Seth, I'm so hyped up about this now. Seth, you got me. I was like at a mid. I was very meh on this card, and then when you started listing off interactions, I'm getting like super excited to play it now.
There's cool tricks. There's cool tricks.
Tomer's gonna hide away 3 Cauldron pieces.
Oh my god, the dream. Oh no.
That would be the ultimate Cauldron assemble if you could hit all 3 off of your 3 lands, copy a Mosswort Bridge. That would be sweet.
The dream.
All right. I have Reckless Handling. 1 in a red. It's a sorcery. It's only uncommon. Search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact card is discarded this way, Reckless Handling deals 2 damage to each opponent. Tomer, I know you hate gamble. What if you shock everyone?
What if you did a 2-mana gamble just for artifacts?
Messes with you.
Look, my piece on gamble is it's an Entomb, right? So if you're in a deck that likes Entomb, then you're gonna like gamble and therefore Reckless Handling. If you're in a artifact deck with a ton of recursion and it doesn't matter what you discard, it's a great.
Like all artifact decks.
Yeah, but I just don't like it.
Artifact decks have recursion. Duretti, Scrap Trawlers, whatever. What if you just try to use it to get your Dowsing Dagger out?
And then you discard the Dowsing Dagger and you're like, God, now I have to get the Dowsing Dagger from my graveyard. It's this whole schlep. It's like, ugh. It's not for me. I agree that it's a good card.
I think this is more than a good card. I think this is the best card in the set, probably. Okay, on one hand, I don't really play a lot of tutors, and I found personally to enjoy Commander more when I play like 0 to 1 tutors in the deck rather than 5 to 10 like I used to play when I first started building Commander decks. I like the inconsistency, so I probably won't play this card all that much just because I tend to avoid tutors, but I actually think this is one of the most impactful cards. Like, red, really good at a lot of things, not very good at tutoring. Outside of gamble, red really doesn't have a lot of options. Red is also one of the primary artifact colors, so you're going to have lots of good artifacts that you want to tutor up, and a lot of the best red artifact decks also have graveyard synergies, Durettis and Osgirs, so you kind of naturally get around the gamble downside, where if you do discard the Portal to Phyrexia or whatever you tutored up, well, you really don't care because you probably were going to reanimate it anyway. So I actually think this is just like an auto include, right? In red artifact decks, I would play this in, like, if I played tutors, I would play this in every red artifact deck possible.
I mean, I run Goblin Welder and Goblin Engineer in all my red artifact decks, so I totally agree with you. It's definitely, it's very good. And Goblin Engineer is literally like very similar to this, where you get to search your library for an artifact card. I think it's any artifact card, and you get to put it into the graveyard immediately, which is basically what Reckless Handling does. But
yeah, and Well, and it's also can be just like a fabricate, and fabricate's actually like a legit blue staple. I was actually kind of surprised. I was looking it up on EDH Rec, and I was thinking, oh, like it sees play, but probably not that much play. But it's actually like a top 50 blue card, even though it only tutors up artifacts. So we've seen narrow tutors for only artifacts. Those can be pretty playable. So I expect this is going to be like red fabricate essentially.
I think this is going to be the most like flexible, useful card out of the set for sure.
I will play this in every red deck until I get sick of it, because every red deck will have a sword in it for ramp, right?
So the dowsing dagger,
the dowsing dagger, the sword of Forge and Frontier. So yeah, you can use this to get another copy of that. So I'm willing to take that risk, and Goblin Welder is a thing. So I'm okay dumping things in the graveyard, right? Just pretend like Crim Mildew. Like he hit you with the sword of body mind. Just pretend that happened.
I respect the card. I acknowledge that it's very good, but there's a part of my brain that is very irrational, that just gets unreasonably salty when I discard at random, because I always have.
But what if you gamble and then this gets discarded? It actually takes the bullet for your gamble.
You gamble for this.
Oh boy! I respect
you gamble for this
though.
for it's deck thinning. You gamble, get this, then you cast this. You got an extra gamble out of your deck. Value.
I'm actually waiting for the clash where someone's at like 2 life and you actually reckless handling to try to discard an artifact to shot.
And then that's the one time you don't.
You get a whiff.
Yeah. It's good for entertainment value too. It's like the Chaos Warp thing. I respect it for the minor amounts of chaos it does as well, while being a good card still.
All right, Tomer, you're on a Nahiri binger this week. What
Heck yeah. Nahiri, not my favorite lore character, but gosh golly, do I like her cards apparently. I have another Nahiri card. This is Nahiri's Resolve. It's a 5-mana Boros enchantment, so 3 a red and a white. And this is not equipment related at all, really. It's more kind of like Blink related. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have haste. At the beginning of your end step, exile any number of non-token artifacts and or creatures you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So this is a cool like way of not only just like giving your creatures haste and pumping them up a little bit, so it's good for go wide strategies more so than like single creatures. But this is a great way to like get blink value out of your ETB artifacts or ETB creatures. It could be as simple as like you have artifacts like for in the Nahiri deck, you have like living weapons and whatnot. We mentioned those. You can remake your germs, but that's not super exciting. I'm thinking more like blinking your meteor golems and blinking, I don't know, friggin' anything that draws cards, Mull Drifter, I don't know. But it also protects it from board wipes because you attack with them, they all have haste, and they all deal extra damage, and then boop, they're all gone until your next turn. So you dodge sorcery speed removal and stuff. So I think this card's fun.
Oh, this card's super fun. This, if you hadn't put this on your list, it would have been on my list. This is one of my favorite cards from the set too. I think you really kind of nailed all the different things that you can do. Just blink your stuff for value. If you think about it, giving your team haste is often like 3 mana, like Fervor's 3 mana or whatever. This is not that expensive. Plus you're pumping your team. Plus you're getting the ability to reuse your ETBs. The only thing I've been stuck on with this is, where would I actually play it? Like a Blink deck is the most obvious, but Blink isn't really in Boros too much. So I've been trying to figure out what actual, like other than, okay, I'm playing 5-color Elish Norn Panharmonicon pile, something like that. It's going to be absurd. But do you have any ideas of like what commander you would actually run this with? Because I think the card's awesome. I just don't know. I don't know where to put it exactly outside of those just like 4 or 5-color piles.
I'm not quite sure. The only like Boros commander that like pops up into my head that could use a lot of ETBs is like, for example, Osgear. Like you don't want to, you're not blinking the tokens that Osgear makes, but like if you have just a bunch of artifacts that have good ETB triggers, just mass blinking all of them each turn is pretty sweet. And then you could also like protect your commander too by blinking Osgear until the next turn too if you're afraid of sorcery speed removal and stuff. So I think it's pretty good. It's also like straight up just like Vandal Blast protection. Like if you're in like an artifact deck or something and you're like terrified of the inevitable Vandal Blast to send you to the Stone Age, you just like run this. And as someone who has a lot of artifact decks and routinely gets sent to the Stone Age, I appreciate that, you know? It's nice.
Yeah, there's a lot. That is nice that it protects your artifacts too. What do you think about this one, Richard?
Spirited Companion, Richard. Spirited Companion.
Yeah, it works with all. Like you can play Coveted Jewel. So you get the cards.
And they can't get back the Coveted Jewel from you. Oh my god, that's so
good. You play Route, which is an instant speed Wrath. So you phase out, you blink out all your stuff, and then you Wrath the board. I mean, White has so many ETB creatures like Sun Titan, whatever, right? Like I don't think you need to reach that far. For more fun, you can blink your Dockside Extortionist. So like there's so many things you can be blinking that in a generic deck that I feel if you want to be dirty and slow and annoying, you just put this in as a 5-mana card advantage card and it'll be pretty good. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of red-based blink decks. I'm actually looking right now. Maybe like Garth.
I mean, you can blink your Cursed Mirror. You can blink your Dockside.
Garth One Eye is pretty sweet. Like you just like if you go Garth One Eye Blink, which I think somebody played on Commander Clash.
You can reset it. Yeah, so you can keep choosing the same one over and over again. Yeah. That's and I mean, like Richard said, you can just play cards that are good with it. It's not like your commander has to specifically work with Blink to make it be good. If you have Spirited Companions and a bunch of ETB triggers, like it's going to be fine regardless of what your commander is. And worst case, like Boros is pretty aggro and +1/+0 and haste. Like if you're being aggressive, that's a powerful effect. Having your commander come down with haste every turn, like that's very strong and dodging rest. So maybe I'm overthinking it and it just like doesn't really matter and you're going to get enough value out of it in kind of any deck with a bunch of creatures and some ETBs.
I know you're going to run it the first chance you get and you're going to jam Panharmonicon with it, Seth, and you're going to love it.
It's like Elish Norn's best friend. Like Panharmonicon, it works so incredibly well with this card. So I'm excited to break out some Panharmonicons and Elish Norns with this.
Can you imagine your Naya and you run New Italia with this? How disgusting that is. Good luck dealing with that. Oh boy.
GG.
GG.
All
right, Seth, what do you have for us?
I have a new commander staple, Richard. A random uncommon. I'm glad that Wizards printed some good cards at lower rarities. And this one, the only problem I have with this card, very, very slight problem, is it is 2 colors, but this card is so good. So Cosmic Rebirth, 3 mana, 1 a green and a white, instant. Choose target permanent card in your graveyard. If it has mana value of 3 or less, put it on the battlefield. If it doesn't, if you don't put it on the battlefield, put it into your hand, and you gain 3 life as a bonus. So let me get this right. There's a card in Commander that is very, very popular called Sevine's Reclamation. It's 2 and a white, sorcery. Return a permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it also has flashback. If you flash it back, you get to do it twice. This is essentially Sevine's Reclamation without the flashback, but at instant speed. And it's also a regrowth effect. Like in the late game, if you need to get some big expensive bomb back, you can get it back to your hand and recast it. Plus it's gaining life along the way. So outside of being in 2 colors, isn't this just an absurd Magic card? The permanent doesn't even come into play tapped. Like you can reanimate a land and it's untapped. You can reanimate a creature instant speed and block something that's Voltron attacking you for lethal. To me, this card just seems absolutely ridiculous. And like I would run this in like a staple in any deck that could cast it. Why would I not play Cosmic Rebirth? Or am I massively overrating this card? I'm curious because when I read this, it's just like, wow, this card it's so strong.
What does Balagad Recovery say? It's any card, right?
Balagad Recovery is like, any card back to your hand. Yes.
Yeah.
So this does have
permanent? Like does regrowth say permanent? Like,
I think Balagad's any card. No.
Yeah, I guess that is the slight difference. Like regrowth or Balagad Recovery, it's not permanent. It's any card. So you could get back instant or sorcery. Sevine's
Reclamation is so popular because it's white ramp. And then it has a flashback, which is like 2 more cards, which is actually a big deal. This is in green already, so you don't care about the ramp.
You're kind of, this is like, would
it.
you run Cosmic Rebirth in a Selesnya deck over Eternal Witness and stuff like that? And I think the answer is like how much you care about, like what's the synergies in your deck. Like if you're like super creature heavy synergies, then I don't think you're going to be running Cosmic Rebirth. You're going to run like Skullwinder and Eternal Witness and stuff like that, just because it's a creature, so you're going to benefit much more from the card type. But it is a really interesting card. I do like that it's instant speed. That's really what sets it apart. And it puts it directly on the battlefield. Like that is a potent combination. I think like getting like a fetch or something is kind of but like it's always an option, and there has to be better things that you can also be getting for 3 or less mana that might be enticing. I don't know. I don't think it's a staple. I'm not sure what decks I would put it in my own personal list, but it's definitely a really interesting card, and I think it's going to be really good in specific decks.
I think, like,
imagine Selesnya. If it was like a single color, either green or white, I think you'd have a much better chance.
There has to be a Selesnya deck that's good at, though.
That's the one. That is the one issue, that it is 2 colors. That doesn't limit the number of decks you can play it in. But even just looking at Selesnya decks, like, it seems like you could jam it in any like permanent heavy, like Catilda or any of the green white human style decks. Like you're gonna have plenty of targets for it to get back. Even like Sethis, an enchantment deck, like you can get back some of your enchantments. Worst case, you get back your Bomby enchantment that got countered on the way down. So I feel like there's just enough. For me, I think there's enough synergies that I would jam this. Like, obviously, if you're a Spellslinger deck and you're not playing a lot of permanents, then this loses a lot of value. But as long as you have a lot of permanents in your deck, I think this is good enough for considering. And you mentioned, like, Eternal Witness and Skullwinder. This works really well with those cards because you can get those back in instant speed as well. So even there's synergies. I would definitely jam it. Like we were just talking about the like 4 or 5 color blinky decks with Nahiri's Warcrafting or whatever it is, Nahiri's Resolve. Like I would just play it for value in a deck like that to get back, you know, a random ramp creature, whatever happens to go to the graveyard. So I don't know. Outside of the color identity issues, I think the card's really good.
I think if I'm ever running Skullwinder, which is in a lot of decks to be fair, I'm going to be trying this because it's the cutest thing. Like imagine somebody's attacking you and you don't have any blockers and you Cosmic Rebirth the Skullwinder onto the battlefield. It's a 1/3 with Death Touch and you get back a card. Oh my, this is why Skullwinder is broken. Not broken, but it's very good. Like Cosmic Rebirth, it's a Skullwinder surprise Death Touch blocker. Oh, so good.
That does sound sweet.
So good. And then you get back Cosmic Rebirth.
You can't do that.
Wait, yeah, you can.
I was thinking of like, can you like do the Cosmic Rebirth Skullwinder?
Yeah,
like,
you can, right?
Snapcaster Cryptic loop thing.
You get back Skullwinder with Cosmic Rebirth, and then ETB trigger goes on the stack, and then you get Cosmic Rebirth, right?
Yeah, that would work.
Oh wait, you can? Yeah. That works.
Then you get something.
Yeah,
else.
that should work.
That's cute.
And you're getting 3 life each time. It's a combo. We found it. We broke it.
You trade with the Skullwinder, and you get back you Cosmic Rebirth it back.
We already talked. So one of the weaknesses of Skullwinder is like you can probably do it once or twice and like, you know, make it so that you choose an opponent that's advantageous. But if you're recurring it 5 times, it's probably not going to fly because you're going to have to choose someone where it's not advantageous for you.
Well, nobody can attack you now because you have 1/3 surprise Death Toucher at any given time.
You've also gained like 3 life multiple times. You're untouchable.
Yeah. Broken. All right, you sold
It's interesting. I want to see this card in action because it's like where you need to cut a card from your deck to put this in. And if you're running Skullwinder, you have Balagan Recovery already. Like, what are you cutting to like add this to your deck exactly? So that'll be the interesting thing to look at.
Thankfully, it's coming to Moto, so we'll actually be able to try these cards on Commander Clash. So
thanks, Daybreak.
All right. Next up, I have Pia Nalaar, Consul of Revival. It's a Boros Commander Tomer, but it's not equipment related. It's red and white. It's a 2/3 for 2 mana. Thopters you control have haste. Whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I don't know what to do with this, but I envision Thopter Storm. where you use like Burgie or something to like exile cards, and then you play a bunch of rituals, but then you don't have to empty the warrens. You're just making Thopters, they have haste, and you kill people.
Richard.
There's also that. What's that 4-mana enchantment where you just exile all the planes from your deck, and then you can play them.
Endless Horizons.
Endless Horizons.
Oh, that's really cute.
You can make a Thopter every turn.
Busted.
That's kind of funny.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Richard.
I just want Thopter Storm.
Richard, I have a good news for you. Pia Nalaar works really good with Nahiri Forge and Fury. You're exiling a bunch. Nahiri says exile the top card of your library each time you're attacking with an equipped creature, and then you could play this card for free if it's an equipment. And then you're casting your equipments for free.
Yes.
You're making Thopters.
Yes.
What do Thopters love? They love holding Dowsing Daggers, which you just cast for free with Nahiri.
Yes. I'm listening. Yes.
That's beautiful.
Wait a minute.
I mean,
There's got to be some way where you cast like the Paradise Mantles, like the 0 mana equipment that are like mana rocks, and you kind of like storm off and you're doing it, and then you have the Thopters to equip all your things onto.
Yeah, they're just bodies for equipments, man. That's good stuff.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't know how to pull off the storm plan. It sounds hilarious if you can actually manage to pull it off. I do think it's pretty sneaky good with there's some cards that when they deal damage, when a creature deals damage, it lets you exile cards and then play them. Like it made me think right away of like Grenzo Havoc Razor, which has an ability whenever one of your creatures deals combat damage to a player, you can exile the top card of that player's library until end of turn you can cast it. Or like Curse of Hospitality also has a similar effect. It seems like you can make a bunch of Thopters and hit with the Thopters and then cast those spells and make even more Thopters and just kind of like snowball it that way, which seems kind of fun.
I think this might be the Cheerios Dance of Calamity commander. Think about it this way. If you could somehow like MacGyver your deck to be like all 0 drops and stuff, and you Dance of Calamity with Pia Nalaar out, you get to make like a bunch of Thopters that have haste. You play your entire deck with Dance of Calamity. It could happen, right? Maybe this is the way to break it.
I might have to try to build that deck now. That actually sounds awesome. I want to do that now.
Standard
you guys are thinking too hard. Look, what's one of the best decks in Commander? It's Prosper. Now Prosper is black and red. So all you gotta do is ninja all the red cards from the Prosper deck and throw it into your Pia Nalaar deck.
There's a lot of exile matters in red. Like
you should have a lot of strong cards, okay? So that's my strategy. That'll be what I'll be doing when I build this deck.
White also has like a couple like
Endless Horizons.
You know, like battles. You could cast battles.
Oh, battles!
Make your battle deck off that. There's also like a blink you could use offensively, and then you can cast it from exile at any time. I forget what it was called.
Soul something that's in standard right now. I've seen people playing that one in standard. I mean, I think the Prosper cards are probably easy mode though. Like there's so many red cards that exile and let you cast now. That's been such a big theme lately that it seems like it should be pretty easy to actually make it work. I don't know what White's doing though.
I want to make Dance of Calamity Cheerios red Boros Adnaz with hasty Thopters as your payoff. That sounds so gas.
I love it.
Everyone's like, Boros, what are you, an aggro deck? What are you, an equipment deck? And you're like,
no, I'm ad nauseum.
No. Boros Storm. Boros Thopter Storm. Good deck name. I would click.
Yeah.
All right, Tober, what do you have for us?
All right, I got a nice value engine for those who like legendaries. This is the Kenrith's Royal Funeral. It's a Orzhov enchantment, 2 white and a black, for a legendary enchantment that says, when the Kenrith's Royal Funeral enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target legendary cards from your graveyard, draw X cards, and you lose X life, where X is the greatest mana value among cards exiled this way. Legendary spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card exiled with the Kenrith's Royal Funeral. So, what this does, essentially, is if you exile 2 legendary creature cards from your graveyard with this, all your legendary spells are going to be costing 2 less as long as it's on the battlefield. And you're going to be drawing a whole bunch of cards, hopefully. If you hit just some random, 5-drop legendary in your graveyard, you're going to draw 5 cards for a 4-drop. So this is really good. Obviously, there's a setup of you need legendary creatures in your graveyard that you want to be exiling, but this seems like a slam dunk for a lot of legendary matters commanders. There's one in Abzan. I think it's Kethis or something. Not Kethis.
Yeah, Kethis.
Is it Kethis?
Yeah, that's Abzan. That's
Abzan,
Kethis,
legendary matters reanimator style thing. Thalia would be another fun one. I don't know. This seems just like gas.
There's a ton. You got new Joda, you got new Omnath, you got Radadrabic, you got Shanid. There was the whole Mardu precon built around legendary matters themes a little while ago. Dahada. So I think there's actually a ton of options. You are very right. This card is so good, right? Assuming you're a deck that has a bunch of legends in it, which would be the kind of deck that would play this card, this is going to be one of the best cards in your deck. We've talked so many times. What do you want to do in Commander? You want to draw cards in ramp? This does both, and it's only 4 mana. I know that's a little expensive for ramp, but giving all of your stuff, all of your legends, -2 mana, that's huge, and this is probably going to draw you 4 cards, 5 cards. It reminds me, what is the card I used to play? Promise of Power? Is that the 5 mana black card that
5 mana draw 5?
5?
Yeah.
I still play that on occasion. This seems like that, but just with way more upside if you're a legend deck. That's a ton of card advantage and a ton of ramping. This is such a good card.
Would you play in a non-legendary matters deck?
So I was just trying to actually
buried alive
figure
some
that out.
random legend that's 7 mana, just 4 mana to draw 7 to call it a day.
How many legends you need to play this, I think, is the question. Because I was trying to think, we get so many legendary creatures these days. If I'm just playing a generic Orzhov deck, are enough of my creatures legendary to actually make this work? And I think I'd have to dig into the actual nuts and bolts of the deck. I would say you probably need 15 legendary creatures would be the floor for me to really feel comfortable that I'm going to get value out of the ramp and value out of the card draw. And maybe I don't know, maybe somewhere around 15. Maybe that's even cutting it too low to really embrace its power. But the thing is, even if you just got the card draw mode, that's still good, right? Let's say you're only playing 10 legendary creatures, but you can get them in your graveyard. If you knew you were 4 mana draw 5, lose 5 or whatever, even if you couldn't really consistently take advantage of the ramp, if we play Promise of Power, we'd play this, I guess, in that context, if we knew we were drawing the cards off of it.
This needs setup though. Promise of Power doesn't. And
that's true.
You always have your commander to take advantage of the ramp.
Yeah, you could just let it go into the graveyard. Well, you could also let your commander go into the graveyard if you have this in your hands, and then you can exile it back to the command zone.
Well, that's
sneaky.
But that's sad mode.
I like
that's
it.
4 mana, draw 3 or something, right?
No, it's gonna die anyway. My gut instinct is I wouldn't run it outside of legendary decks, but I mean, given how many legendaries we're getting in 2023, and it's just there's no end in the exponential growth of it. I feel if you ask me this question again in a year, I'd be all my spells are legendary. It just so happens. So sure. Isn't this set entirely legendary? What's going on?
There are a lot more legendary spells than legendary creatures. So you have to exile creatures, but you can cast legendary spells with
Yeah,
I like this card.
I think this card, the more...
I'm going to play it in generic deck to see how it goes.
Yeah. I think
you probably need to bury it alive or something. Or you need Crim to hit you with the Sword of Body and Mind.
Oh, yeah. Please. Please fuel it.
What other easy setup is there? Discard, you gamble your legendary.
Sacrifice.
Sack, yeah.
Yeah, sacrifice, any looting effects, faithless looting, any draw and discard effects.
I really like it in
Radadrabic.
Radadrabic is legendary aristocrats. So that's super fun. You want to be sacrificing your legendaries anyway. Oof. Kethis is another obvious one where you want to be self-mill.
Niv.
All right.
2-color card for Niv too. Yeah. Niv Legends. All right.
What do you have for us?
I have I don't know. Is this card cool or is it boring? Regardless, it's a good one. Tranquil Frillback. One of the surprise themes from March of the Machines and Aftermath was a lot of random dinosaurs. And this is a very good dinosaur. It's just a 3-mana 3/3. It's a green card, not legendary. It's just a dinosaur. And it has an ability where when it enters the battlefield, you can pay a green mana up to 3 times. For each time that you pay that mana, you get to choose one of these 3 abilities. Blow up an artifact or enchantment, exile target player's graveyard, or you gain 4 life. So this card, I think, is a card that you can run in any deck that has a decent amount of green mana, and it's just going to be really good. If you look on EDH Rec, you'll see that Little Old Reclamation Sage is one of the most played green cards in the entire format. It's like a true staple. 17% of decks, up there with all the mana dorks and the ram spells, is just one of the most popular cards. I think this is just a better version. Yes, you do have to pay an extra mana to get the abilities, but all of these abilities are relevant. Blowing up an artifact or enchantment, that's always something that's good in Commander. Exiling someone's graveyard, we are constantly talking about how we should play more graveyard hate. This is a way you can accidentally play graveyard hate. You can have the graveyard hate and you don't have to remove something else from your deck because this is also your artifact destruction spell. And then gaining some life is always nice as well. I always want a little incidental life gain in my decks because I don't like being the low person at the table and be in danger of dying. And then you also have tribal synergies where dinosaurs are really popular, and they're going to be even more popular likely once we get more dinosaurs later this fall. So I feel like this is just a good card, right? Is there any reason not to run this in a green deck? Is this a new Reclamation Sage?
It's a 4-mana Rec Sage.
Well, isn't that like saying
I like the upside?
Isn't that like
but
saying
how
Open
often
the Way
do you kill
is just a
2
4-mana ramp spell? I feel like you're underestimating the flexibility there.
I think you sold me on dinosaur. I don't care about the text. It's a dinosaur. I'm putting it in good shot.
It is a dinosaur. So for 5 mana, you get a 3/3. You blow up an artifact and enchantment and nuke the most scary graveyard. That seems pretty good. To me.
It's a great dinosaur. 10 out of 10 dinosaur. I'm putting in my dinosaur deck. I don't know about the other decks,
dinosaur, but is it Jurassic Park or Jurassic World 5 or whatever? Which one is this?
I think this is Jurassic Park. If you're expecting dinosaurs, good quality dinosaurs, this is a Jurassic Park original hitter. It gives you all the utility you want in your dinosaur deck. Again, I don't know about other decks, but yeah, dinosaurs.
It's just one of those nuts and bolts cards that kind of ties everything together.
So you cut Rec Sage out of your deck? Is that what we're doing?
In my dinosaur deck? Yes, of course.
Oh, in dinosaurs.
A generic deck, Tober, not the dinosaur deck.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Assuming I'm not intimidated by having to pay green mana in specific, and that's not a big cost. I think I would. I'd play Rec Sage and Elves, I'd play Frillback and Dinosaurs, and for everything in between, assuming I can pay double green or triple green pretty consistently, I think I would just rather play Tranquil Frillback, honestly.
Wait, what's the wording for its ability? Can you Green Sun Zenith it out and still do the kicker part?
It's a ETB and then you pay when it ETBs. So you can blink it, Green Sun Zenith it, whatever.
It's like a superior kicker, kind of.
I'm willing to try it. Yeah. Although I think because the mana, because if you're trying to Green Sun Zenith a Rec Sage, that's already 4, and then now you're like, this thing is 5. It's starting to get a little out of hand. But the ability to use the multiple modes is pretty sweet.
Yeah, imagine you have a Rec Sage in your hand that can if you're up against a graveyard deck and you don't really have an artifact or enchantment you want to blow up, but you really want to blow up somebody's graveyard, the fact that this can actually just do that for you instead of a Rec Sage, which is more mana efficient, yes, but the flexibility here is really nice. I actually am sold on it. I think it's worth testing out.
I think I'm sold on it.
And then if you have Panharmonicon, wait, no, it's not actually.
Yarok?
That's not very good.
Yarok,
no, because you still have to pay the green twice, right?
So, actually, that's a good question. I think you're right. Yeah, maybe it's not as good with Panharmonicon as I thought.
Look, it's auto include in dinosaurs. I will not hear any naysay on that, and then otherwise, it's worth testing.
Yeah, I'm sold on it. It's arguing for Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares or something over Generous Gift.
Yeah, it's a generous gift to Swords to Plowshares. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is, right? So I think I'll take this one. All right. Okay, I have a spicy one. I don't know what I'm doing with this one. It's a Simic card. We need Phil to give his input.
Yeah, where's Phil?
2 green and a blue. So 4 mana, 3/3 legendary creature, human druid. It's Jolrael, Voice of Zhalfir. At the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target land you control becomes an XX green and blue bird creature with flying with haste until end of turn. Where X is the number of cards in your hand, it's still a land. Whenever a land creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So I'm just imagining for value, you just play this, send one of your lands as a bird into the air, hit someone, draw a card. It's Toski. And then to be cute, you can run like Sylvan Awakening or whatever, like one of those cards that just transform all your lands into creatures and then just hit someone and like draw a billion cards.
Yes. Like Sylvan Awakening.
What do you think about just the plan of just sending a land every turn? And it's just like a really like bad Phyrexian Arena. Like no Underworld Connections, the one that you have to put on a land and tap it. It's like the floor of it's not that bad, right?
You just like because it's a bird.
Yeah.
It's a bird. It's a bird land.
I mean, so it is potentially a decent amount of damage, right? Like it draws you cards, so you have a full hand, and then you're getting in with a 5/5, a 6/6 land, and it flies. Like I guess there's some risk of your land getting blown up, but I guess you just accept that. So I don't think it's bad just sending in 1 land. Although I would say if you're building around this as your commander, I think the like kind of the jokey like play Sylvan Awakening or whatever, I actually think that's how I would build around it probably, is try to play as many effects as possible that can turn my lands into creatures, play as many creature lands as possible. It's a really cool creature land commander, but there's a lot of powerful cards like Nissa Who Shakes the World, doubling your mana, turning lands into creatures. There's a lot of cards like that. Kamal can turn your lands into creatures. So I think that's how I build around this card, and really, Shaya, really try to turn this into the full-on Toski in a Lands Matter style deck. So I don't know if I would you play this in a generic Simic deck as a Phyrexian Arena? I probably wouldn't, but I do think it would be really fun to build around.
I'm totally on board.
If I was playing Sylvan Awakening.
Animate lands.
I sometimes play Sylvan Awakening for fun.
Dude, I mean, Sylvan Awakening is so fun, honestly.
If you can ramp a bunch, like that's a scary card. Yeah. That'll just kill people.
Yeah. I just shoved it in Galta, and it was like, okay, now all my lands now add a 2 mana discount onto Galta, and I get to swing people for a big damage. It's really fun.
But what's that mechanic where when you cast a spell, like it costs a little more, but then you put like 4 +1/+1 counters on a land, and now it's a creature.
Awakening?
Yeah.
Awakening. You can play like those cards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the green battle like flips the green explosive vegetation battle flips into a land creature.
Yeah.
There's actually fun.
There's enough cards you can build around it. Yeah, Mutavault, all the creature lands. There's an emergent sequence, puts a land out of the battlefield that's a creature. So there's actually plenty of cards to build a deck around it. I will say the one thing I don't like about it is it doesn't untap the land. So if you just slam this on turn 4, its ability kind of does nothing. So you got to wait until like turn 5. So you have an untapped land to turn that land into a bird. So I think that's like the one thing one little mark against it. That doesn't like ruin my excitement for brewing around it, but I think that does dampen my like excitement for playing it fairly. If it untapped the land, then we'd be in business.
It works with your Jund card earlier.
I know, just the wrong colors.
You just gotta play 5 color and then Feel the Dead, and then turn those zombies back into land somehow, and then hit someone.
Yes. Draw all the cards.
I'm looking for a new way to build birds. This is the 2024 bird lands.
This is peak Richard Bird style. Like Toski is a bird. Now lands
it's Toski, and you can't even give me crap for running.
Yeah, it's literally a bird. So
it's on point.
It's actually a step in the right direction. So I'm on board with this. I love it. I think it's really fun. I like animate land strategies. This is cool.
All right, Tomer, bring us home. What do you have for us?
All right, I'm bringing us up with a card that I was like, but I'll play it a bunch. So there was like Nashi Moon's Legacy, which is the spicy one, but I just will never play this card. But this card I actually will play. So it's Sigarda, Font of Blessings. It's a 4-mana Selesnya legendary creature angel. It's a 4/4 flyer, and it actually cares about angels and humans. So other permanents you control have hexproof, which is really nice, passive protection. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast angel spells and human spells from the top of your library. So this is like a future sight card advantage engine for your human decks and your angel decks, and it has a bonus of also just giving all your permanents hexproof, which is just some nice passive protection against targeted removal. Somebody has to actually remove Sigarda first. So I just think this is really good in humans and angels. That's all there is to it. It's just good. It's not fancy. It doesn't do anything particularly new or exciting, but it's a good card, and I like it, and I'm going to play it.
Give me the tier list of Sigardas.
Oh.
How does this stack up against
Well, like the OG
the
is
original Sigarda, the other angel and human Sigarda?
I think this is probably like, in terms of power, I think this is probably, especially as a 99, this is the best. And then if you want to go Voltron, the OG Sigarda I think still holds up because it has like sacrifice protection. And then what was it, like the one that came out like 2 years ago from Crimson Vow?
The bad one, yeah.
It was okay.
The bad Sigarda.
It's like fine in like human decks. It only helps humans too. This one could be your angel commander, which again, it kind of boggles my mind in 2023 that we have so few angel tribal commanders that exist. Like this, we got Giada like last year, and we had like some overcosted ones before, and now we have a Selesnya Angel one, which is nice.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you want to play green-white angels, this is gonna be your go-to. Like right now, you can play old Sigarda, I guess Shalai, Voice of Plenty, but neither one of those actually cares about the angel tribe. This is actually a reason to fill your deck with angels because you get that static ability that's letting you play off the top of your deck. So I think it's actually like a fine commander if you want to be green-white angels. And I'm with you. I would jam this in the 99 of basically any human deck or angel deck. It's a privilege position, which is a really powerful effect along with the card advantage engine. So I also like, little shout out to Wizards. At first I thought it was weird that we were getting all these cards that you played off the top of your deck. Like throughout the first 25 years of Magic, that was just like a super rare ability. And now every set we're getting one. But I actually think it's a sneaky way to give like tribes and colors card advantage without just being like, oh, draw a card or whatever, which we've seen Wizards try to avoid with like white. But this is a way you can give those tribes and those color combinations a really nice source of card advantage, a powerful source of card advantage that is on theme and on flavor for the tribe and color. So I really like the way they're going with the designs of these cards.
I'm waiting for the power creep where you can divining top the top of your library.
Oh jeez.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's very efficient.
And then cast off the top.
It definitely feels like power creep, but at least the nice thing about it is the power, like I think Wizards of the Coast has been shifting away from power creeping generic staples and now power creeping very specific staples. Like this is obviously just very good in like human decks and angel decks. And is it push? Yes, but like it's only going to show up in human decks and angel decks, so I think it's fine. You know, I like it.
That's not too bad. It's 4 mana, 4/4. If they really wanted to push it, they'd make it a 5/5 or something like that. So
it is green.
Yeah,
card advantage off the top is not.
But
I don't think that's too pushed.
I think giving everything hexproof is really nice. I think like Sigarda was something your opponents wanted to kill anyway, so it's not like it's gonna really make the target that much worse on its back. But it's just nice, you know, like if you have like a must kill threat that you put on the table, having it hexproof and your opponents have to now deal with Sigarda first is nice. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's just a solid card for those tribes.
All right, so that concludes our top 12 March of the Machine Aftermath cards. What do you guys think of the set overall? Do you compare it to like like the pre-con commander cards we get along with the normal standard sets? Do you feel this is better than that, worse than that? It's about 54 cards, I believe.
It's a really good B-side, as Seth put it.
Yeah. That's kind of how I kind of see it. Kind of the B side. Like, it's fine. I think my biggest criticism of it is just how they're releasing it. As far as like card for card, I think it's just as good as the new cards you get in Commander Precons. Probably better than the new cards you get in Commander Precons. I think there's more of them, and there's arguably more exciting ones. I think the biggest criticism is just like they're selling it for the same price as a normal set as far as buying boosters, and I don't know. I don't want to spend the normal price for a 5-card booster, even if it is the commons that they cut out of it. Like, it's still just, it's kind of a feel bad. So I haven't really come around to the idea of paying full price for 5-card boosters. I wish they released it in a different way, but the cards themselves, I don't think they're like especially inspired. They feel like they could be in March of the Machines themselves for the most part, but I think there's some really fun stuff that I look forward to playing with. So I like the cards, don't necessarily like how they're being released though, or the price they're being released for.
What about you, Richard? How do you feel about it?
I agree with that. I just don't like how every card is a legendary creature. Like, just give me like sorceries and instants and enchantments like designed for Commander that I don't need to build like a whole new deck around. But other than that, I think it's fine. I mean, I get what they're doing with the story, but it'd be nice to just have like generic cards that you can put into your existing deck rather than like all these cards are kind of like, here, build a new deck, or at least like swap around the Commander and kind of change the whole thing of your deck. I would just like to see some generic cards.
I'm going to take the opposite stance. Why aren't all these sorceries, instants, and artifacts and enchantments legendary, huh? Think of all the synergies we could have in Commander. That could be great. Who cares about other formats?
That, but soon enough, they'll make it so that you can only cast the spell if you control like a Nahiri or something.
They go straight up putting Oathbreaker into Commander, or it's like you can only cast the spell if you have a Nahiri Planeswalker. So
like the legendary spells, but they like restrict it even further. They're like, if you have a Nahiri, you can cast Nahiri's
Resolve.
And then it's like a super broken Wrath.
Yeah. I could actually see that. Please don't give them ideas. I'm sure it's coming.
We don't want to give Wizards any ideas here. Cut this out.
I don't know.
All right, so let us know in the comments what you're most excited to play from March of the Machine Aftermath. Let us know what you think about some of the cards. Is Tranquil Frillback a staple? Are you going to play it over Rex Age? Or what's the other one we had? The Skullwinder replacement, Cosmic Rebirth. Are you gonna play that over your Eternal Witness or Skullwinders? Let us know.
Is Jolrael the new best bird commander?
Is Jolrael better than Toski?
Oh no!
Let us know.
Can someone break the Birds Lands deck for me and then send it to me? Better yet, someone take a Prosperous, yank out the red cards, and build me a Pia Nalaar deck.
I'm telling
please.
you, Pia Nalaar, Adnaz, Boros, Thopterstorm. It's happening. It's so good.
We should build an Aftermath block constructed deck. You just take 54 cards, add
lands, 5-color Aftermath.
Just add in the lands, and then you're good to go.
Every card references a new archetype, because like that's what the set is. Every card is like humans you control, dinosaurs you control. Yeah. It's like, okay.
It's basically that Secret Lair MDFC deck they made, or double face card deck. Like, no synergy. We'll just, it sends double face card, throw them all together.
Something for everybody.
It's a deck. Yeah. Deck in quotes. Yeah, finger quotes around the deck part. Yeah.
Good luck casting any spells in that
deck. All right. Thank you, everyone. Remember to leave a comment. We want to know what you think about these cards, and we'll see you all back here next week. See ya.